Very quickly at the beginning of this video, I want to add a caveat. This video is going to be upsetting for some people, like really upsetting. I feel like I need to talk about the subject. I have felt for some time like I need to talk about this subject, so I promised myself I was going to make this video today. But if you are transgender, or you are a transgender ally, I just want you guys to know I'm going to say some things that are probably going to be very upsetting for you, and I want you to know that I am describing myself. I am describing my journey coming to terms with my transgender identity, some of the things that I was thinking before I realized that I was trans, before I really had a chance to really think through some of these parts of myself. And so there will be moments where I will describe myself as a pervert, and that's because that's how I thought of myself at that time. I am not saying that transgender people are perverts. I'm not saying that I think of transgender people as perverts, particularly now that I've had a chance to think through some of these things. I'm talking about my own response to my own transgender identity. I didn't know I was transgender. I didn't know why I felt the things I was feeling. I didn't know why I was having the experiences I was having. And so I didn't know what else to call it. And so I just called myself a pervert. I know that a lot of people like to flag videos that seem like they might be speaking disparagingly of trans people. That is not why I'm making this video. I am making this video because I want to share my journey with you guys, because I think there are a lot of people who are in exactly the same place as I'm in, or as I was in, who are struggling with the same kinds of feelings that I was struggling with. And I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to see how I moved from being afraid of my transgender identity to, being much more accepting of my transgender identity, especially the nuances of my trans identity, mine specifically, and the type of transgender identity I had. I want you guys to see how I made that journey, because I have the feeling there are a lot of people out there who are either in the process of making that journey or haven't even started making that journey, who can benefit from understanding how a person can go from looking in the mirror and being afraid of what they see to understanding who they are and what they are, and accepting that and appreciating that for what it is. I want you guys to know that that is possible, and that if you are in the midst of this journey and you are struggling with your sexuality, your transgender identity, and you're afraid of what you are, and you're afraid to look too closely at what you are, it's okay. It's okay. You're not alone. A lot of us go through this, and it's going to be okay. And there is nothing wrong or bad about you. And so this is my story. So I don't know how many years I've known that I was transgender. I really don't know. It was something that, it was in the news all the time, especially these last couple of years. I think it was the last 2 years or so that I started to really suspect that I was trans. And it was in the news all the time. And so I kept on sitting there thinking, okay, it's probably just because it's in the news all the time and I'm thinking about it a lot, because everybody's thinking about it a lot. It's probably just that, and I'm not really trans, I'm just thinking about it, so then I think that I am, right? Like, that's gotta be it, right? There has been a massive upswing in the number of people identifying as transgender. Massive, like very large scale. And there are a few different ideas floating around as to why this might be. Some of them are that we're getting better at recognizing what a transgender person is, and transgender people are hearing about what being transgender is, so they are now discovering that they are transgender, which is actually what happened to me. And some people are arguing that it is social contagion. And so at the time, and I'm not gonna get into in this video whether it's social contagion or just people discovering what they are. That's not the subject of this video. It's not relevant to this video. But these are the two arguments that you're hearing. And so at the time, 2 years ago, I'm sitting there thinking, this is probably a social contagion. I'm female, so I'm probably more subject to social contagion than other people might be. And I'm probably, being just highly suggestible and hearing about it in the news all the time and assuming that I must be trans. That's got to be it. So I don't really need to look into it too closely or think about it too closely. The problem was I act like a trans person. I talk like a trans person. I feel like a trans person. So that kind of sat with me a lot, where I was like, okay, if I'm not trans, then what's going on here? What is this? And so it was this really awkward thing for me, where it was like, okay, what is going on with me? And like up until the point that I posted my last video about being trans, about transgender identity, I didn't know. I did not know. I wasn't sure. I strongly suspected. I kind of knew, but I wasn't sure, and I wasn't certain, and I wasn't sold on the idea, and it was like, all right, I really think this is what's happening with me, but I'm probably not a real transgender person because I have no desire to transition, which means I'm not really transgender. I'm just sort of semi-transgender, or there's something, but it's not, I'm not transgender. Yeah. So when about 2 years ago, I started thinking, okay, maybe I really am transgender, because I keep thinking about it. I keep asking myself about it. I went online and I tried to find information about it, and I found some absolutely useless websites that are really promoted by trans people and trans allies. Like, this is the website to go to. This is the one that's going to give you your answers. It's like, okay. And I click on it, and it's like this bright pink page, like as pink as this ring that I'm wearing, okay? And it's like, yes, you are transgender. And it's like, dude, that's not a real answer. That doesn't answer any of my questions. It's just this blind affirmation, like, yeah, there you are, you're transgender. And I'm like, this tells me nothing. This tells me nothing. And the logic is, if you're asking the question, then you must be transgender. And it's like, okay, that might work for some people, but that's not good enough for me. I need to know. I need to have some certainty. And everywhere I went, even in my last video talking about it, was like, nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. Everybody kind of feels it or kind of doesn't feel it. And so they're kind of going along like, I think this is what's happening to me. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. And so, I mean, for me, that's just, that's a level of uncertainty that I cannot sit easily with. I need to have answers. I need to ask questions, and I need to get answers to those questions, because that enables me to ask more questions. And that's how I operate. Just questions upon questions. That's me. That's the inside of my brain. So I went to my therapist, and I was like, I think I might be transgender. And she looked at me, she was like, okay, what makes you think you're transgender? And so I sat there and I was like, well, I don't experience gender dysphoria. At least not that I'm aware of. I don't think I experience gender dysphoria, but I do experience gender euphoria. And it's this amazing thing. Like, it's wonderful. And I started explaining to her, like, all these experiences that I've had throughout my life where, somebody thought I was a guy, or somebody mistook me for a man, or somebody told me that I looked like a boy instead of a girl. And I loved these experiences, and I've held on to them. And I just feel this amazing sense of joy, and it's otherworldly, right? I have these experiences, and they're so precious to me. And as I was describing these things to her, I was like smiling. I was like, yeah, and then this happened. And then there's this one time that this happened. And I looked at her, and I could see her, and I don't think she was aware. She had this look of just disgust and horror on her face. And I could see her body visibly tensing up as I described to her these things in my life. And I realized, you're making this woman very uncomfortable. So I just changed the subject. I was like, you know what? Never mind. It was probably just my imagination. It's nothing. And then when anybody asked me afterwards, I just was like, no, I'm definitely not trans. I'm not trans. And then I took that piece of information, the fact that me describing my experiences that were probably transgender experiences had been so horrifying for her. It was like, okay, what does that mean? Now, I had heard about autogynephilia, autoandrophilia. I'd heard about that before, and I thought it was really weird sounding. Like, you know, the way I heard about it, it was like guys who would like steal their sister's underwear so they could masturbate into girls' panties. And it was like, that's freaky weird, man. That's not me. That can't be me. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. That's weird. That's weird, right? It seems so weird to me. It's like I'm not experiencing any of that. Like if you had gone up to me a month ago, 2 months ago, and said, you know, that gender euphoria that you're feeling, those wonderful experiences that you're having where people mistake you for a man and you're just so happy, that's a sex thing. And I would have been like, you're kidding, right? Because it doesn't feel remotely sexual. This does not feel sexual at all. Like I'm really happy. It feels so right inside my head. But that's not a sex thing. That's just that's something else. Like it's weird. It's not sexual. Right? But what if it is? But what if it is? What if that's what this is? What if I am an autoandrophile? Which is the female version of an autogynephile, which you might have heard about. And I mean, the public face of autogynephilia is atrocious. Remember the "It's Ma'am" person from GameStop? Yeah, that person. That was an autogynephile. That is what people think about when they think about autogynephiles. They think about Karen. And it's disgusting. Like I'm not talking about the fact that this person was wearing eye makeup or a pink shirt and pink shoes. I'm talking about the behavior. The screaming, the shouting, the temper tantrum in public is disgusting. Is that what I am? Oh God, is that what I am? Please tell me that's not what I am. Tell me that's not me. Tell me that I am not some panty-stealing pervert who has public temper tantrums and screams at people and acts like a crazy person. Tell me I'm not one of those. And I was, understandably, pretty upset. I was upset because my therapist's reaction to me. I was upset because I had been hiding so many things about myself so carefully. Like, you hear about people who are in serious denial who are homosexual. Like, you hear about that sometimes, where it's like they're homosexual but they are in heavy duty denial. Like, I'm not gay. I'm not gay. I've seen accounts of guys who are like, I'm not gay. My friend and I, we just suck each other's dicks sometimes. It doesn't mean anything. Denial. Like, denial. There are so many things about my life, and I'm 36 years old. I've been feeling these things for a long time, that it's like, oh, that's not a thing. I mean, yeah, I feel this sometimes, but that's not a thing, right? That's normal. It's normal. Normal people do that, right? And then it started just crashing down on me. It's like, oh my God, I'm one of these people, and these people are perverts. And I'm not talking about transgender people, okay? There are a lot of different kinds of transgender people. I'm talking about autogynephiles and autoandrophiles. And if you are an autogynephile or an autoandrophile, or you suspect you might be, and you're sitting here the way I was sitting for a long time, and you're just squirming inside, and you're thinking, my God, no, not me too. Please, not me. It gets better. It's okay, okay? It gets okay. But at the time, I was a wreck. And if you're feeling horrible right now, and you're feeling like an utter wreck, and you're thinking, I can't watch any more of this video, it's okay. It gets better. So then I saw this video, and I'll leave a link in the description. I saw this video with this guy, and I was genuinely inspired by his courage talking so openly about this subject, because it's something that I never had the guts to do. I never even had the guts to look myself in the mirror and be like, this is what's going on. And here's this young man who doesn't seem like a weirdo or a freak or a pervert, who is speaking about these things that I myself have experienced that I was horrified by. And I was so impressed by his courage. Like, that is so amazing that he had the strength and the ability to come out and talk about this. And that's why I'm leaving a link in the description. If you guys want to watch his video, it's amazing. Like, he's calm. He's calm about it. And here I was, panicking and freaking out and feeling so upset that I couldn't even watch his video without pausing it a few times to just kind of regroup and pull myself back together. And he was talking about it, and it's like, you know what? This person seems like he's got a real level head on his shoulders. Maybe not all autogynephiles are perverted. Maybe not all autogynephiles are, circus freaks. Or, acting like monsters or weirdos or just secretly horrifying and disgusting. Maybe they're not all bad. Maybe some of them are actually pretty decent, normal people. Maybe I'm a decent, normal person. So I started by feeling sympathy for autogynephiles, because, I'm a female, so I can't be an autogynephile, and it was like, you know what? I bet there are autogynephiles who are decent, normal people. And I bet this media circus surrounding us is really upsetting for them, because anybody who's an autogynephile who's just living their normal life and sees the "it's ma'am" temper tantrum in the GameStop, they're probably just squirming in their shoes right now thinking, my God, is that what people think of when they see someone like me? And that's got to be really horrible for all these autogynephiles out there in the world. Like, all these other people. Not me. I'm not one of them. Like, I'm not like that. But, I feel really bad for these other people who are like that, It's got to be really rough for them. And I feel bad for them. And I should probably talk about this. I should probably talk about the fact that there are probably in this world a lot of autogynephiles who are just normal, everyday people who don't want to be associated with this mess that we're seeing on TV. Because, think about it. How do viral videos end up becoming viral videos? Well, someone does something out of the ordinary. And so someone who's an autogynephile goes and has a public freak out. And because it's so dramatic and so cringeworthy, that video gets taken and it gets shared around the internet, and other people see it and they think, oh my God, look at this person having a temper tantrum in public like a spoiled child and acting like a crazy person. I've got to share this with my friends. And so the video goes around, it makes its rounds, and nobody sees the perfectly ordinary autogynephile who's sitting there right next to them, minding their own damn business and doing nothing particularly viral video worthy. Like, if you're a normal autogynephile, you're probably just living your life and nobody knows. Because the scat fetishists out there, nobody knows they're scat fetishists, right? The people who are, turned on by dressing up as clowns, nobody knows who they are, right? Unless they advertise it or do something like have a massive public freak out about it. So there are a bunch of these people, these autogynephiles, but I'm not one of them because, right? I'm not one of them. No, not at all. No. But these other people, they're probably just trying to live their lives and dealing with all this crap that is circulating on the internet. And then other people, like normal people, are looking at it and saying, oh my God, is that what an autogynephile is? That's disgusting. Look at that horrible behavior. Look at that public temper tantrum. How are they not dying of shame right now? And they hate autogynephiles because they think autogynephiles are all like that. And it's disgusting. After I made the, gee, there must be normal autogynephiles in the world, I feel so bad for them because it probably sucks to be an autogynephile these days, I finally started being a little bit more honest with myself about my own sexual orientation. And I say sexual orientation because autogynephilia is probably best characterized as a sexual orientation. It's not a fetish, and it's not a kink. that makes it sound like it's something small and optional and not primary or fundamental to a person's sexuality. And that's not what these things are. Because, for example, a heterosexual person does many, many things that they don't think of as being directly related to their sexuality. So a heterosexual woman might put on makeup at the beginning of the day, and she doesn't think at all that she's doing anything sexual by putting on makeup. It's just, that's how I get ready in the day. I put on my mascara and I go to work. I've got my lipstick on. You know, everybody does that. Everybody does that. That's a normal thing, right? That's normal. You're not getting sexually aroused when you're putting on your lipstick at the beginning of the day, because that's just a thing you do. Like, you don't think about it. And you certainly don't think about it as a sexual thing. And that's one of the things that you can look at and say, well, I suppose that if I was getting ready for a date, I would put on makeup for that. And that is kind of sexual. So technically it is related to sexual things, but it doesn't feel sexual when I'm just doing it on a daily basis. But I guess it's technically sexual. But then there are other things that people do that are also sexual that we don't even realize is related to our sexuality. So, for example, again, common or garden, normal, everyday heterosexual person. They go to the gym. So, heterosexual one who goes to the gym, gets a workout, you know, she's running on a treadmill or whatever, and she's doing this so that she can be slender and she can look pretty, and she's doing this for her health. And she is doing this for her health. This keeps her healthy. This is a behavior that people do to maintain their bodily health. It's important, it's necessary, it's good for you. You should definitely be doing this. But it is also related to your sexuality. And you'd be sitting there for the longest time just scratching your head going, how the hell is this related to my sexuality? It is. And here's how it is. Your level of physical fitness is a sexual indicator to potential mates. If you are physically fit and if you're pretty as a woman, that signals to men around you who might be potential mates that you are an attractive potential mate for them. Now, that can be really annoying when guys are hitting on you and you don't want them to be hitting on you, and it's like, just go away. I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this so that I can, look good for myself. A lot of women complain about that with makeup too. But say that you saw an attractive man as a heterosexual woman who's, very, very normal person. Say you saw an attractive man and all of a sudden it would be like, oh, yeah, I want to look pretty for him. I want to wear makeup when I'm around him. I want to kind of check my hair, make sure that looks good. I want to go to the gym. I want to run. I want to watch what I'm eating because I want to look good. Why do I want to look good, huh? It's a sex thing. It's not entirely a sex thing. It's a social thing. It's a physical health thing. It's a personal appearance thing. It's a personal sense of self-worth thing because it ties into your sense of self-worth. But it is also partially a sexual thing. And that's not bad. You're not sitting there running on the treadmill and being like, I'm so horny right now. You're not doing that because people don't do that. But it is tied into your sexuality. Okay, so bearing that in mind, autoandrophilia, which is the female variant of autogynephilia, which, if you aren't familiar with these terms, it is the sexual attraction to being the opposite sex. So if you are biologically, born female, and you are sexually attracted to being a man, you are an autoandrophile. And obviously the opposite of that is a man who is sexually attracted to being a woman. It's a sex thing, but it's not a kink because it's tied into every aspect of your life. And so it is better and easier to conceptualize it as a sexual orientation. Because I have in my life, for as long as I've been, particularly shortly before the onset of puberty, I started doing things and I didn't understand why I was doing them. But I kept doing things, and they weren't normal person things. So going back to the woman running on the treadmill, she's doing this thing. She might not necessarily think about why she's doing it, but it's a normal thing, so she doesn't have to think about why she's doing it. But for me, I was doing things that were not normal, and I didn't understand why I was doing them. It was perplexing, it was confusing, and it was scary because I didn't know what was happening to me. And nobody was around to clue me in. And I talked to transgender people who had been transitioned for years and years, decades of their lives. And nobody even hinted that this was a thing. And so, having accepted, having moved from, oh my God, this whole thing is just a massive pile of squick and I can't look at it, it's just too weird, to there are probably very wonderful, ordinary, everyday people who have autogynephilia, who are just living their lives, and this isn't a bad thing. These are normal, okay people. And this is something that my husband actually helped me to realize, because I was talking about my squick reaction with him, and he was like, yeah, so they get turned on by that. People get turned on by all sorts of things. It's not a big deal. And I was like, you're right. You're right. It's not a big deal. I shouldn't be freaking out about this. So I went from that, okay, these people are probably okay, to it's time for me to start taking a real honest look at myself. What is happening with me? Why do I have these feelings? Why am I doing these things that I can't explain? Why am I like this? And I looked at it in a very different context than the original, oh my God, am I a pervert? I looked at it as, okay, let's just be honest. What are the things I'm feeling? What are the experiences I'm having? What are these emotional reactions that I'm having to certain events? What does that mean? And that was when I started doing research on it, because I had questions and I was starting to ask. I was starting to feel just barely brave enough to say, what is autogynephilia? What is it? What is it like? How do people experience it? And I found this interview with this gentleman. His name is Phil Illy. And I started watching it, and of course the squick started setting in. It was like, oh God, I don't know if I can get through this. I don't know if I can get through this. I started watching it, and I was set at ease by his description of his autogynephilic experiences. He called it autoheterosexual. He said he was an autoheterosexual, and his autogynephilia was autoheterosexuality. Which he shortened to the term autohet, which is a hell of a lot easier to pronounce, so I will probably also use the term autohet in the future. But the way he described it was it was very much in line with my own experiences. It was exactly my own experiences. I could tell from listening to him talk that I was an autoandrophile. But he didn't say it in a cold and clinical way. He didn't say it in a way that sounded like disgusting or weird or freakish. He was very skillful at describing it in a way that helped me understand what was happening to me. And that was such a huge relief. So I went from watching the video, squeaking out, like, oh my God, this is too weird. I don't know if I'm ready for this, to, yeah, this is me, and this is okay. And this isn't scary anymore. I'm gonna be okay. Like, this is okay. This is an okay thing. This isn't something I have to be afraid of. And so, after watching the interview, I ordered his book. So yeah, guess what I'm going to be doing a review of? I strongly suggest it. I am not all the way through the book, but if you are dealing with if you're dealing with transgender feelings that you cannot explain, if you want to understand your transgender identity better, if you are starting to come to the realization that you are an autogynephile or an autoandrophile, and you want to understand what's happening to you and find ways to live with what's happening to you without being quite so freaked out by your own self, buy this book. If you want to understand transgender people, and I'm not saying all transgender people, and he's not saying that either, but if you want to understand what a lot of transgender people are going through, this is helping me so much. This is helping me come to terms with what I am as an autoheterosexual. It's helping me to not be so freaked out by myself. And also, like, there's so much frustration because I've been feeling these feelings for 26 years. So for 26 years of my life, I've been sitting here not understanding why I was doing the things I was doing, being embarrassed because I was doing things that were not normal, and I knew they weren't normal, and I didn't know why. This helps to clarify so much for me so that I now feel like I can look at my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors, and be like, okay, I know where this is coming from. You're not just sort of blindly stumbling around in the dark going, why the hell am I so weird? It's not fun. It's scary. It's scary to feel like that. And I can laugh about it and I can joke about it right now because I feel this immense sense of relief that I'm not lost in the dark anymore. And if you are like me, in the sense that you feel lost in the dark, that book is going to help. And if you are trans questioning, if you're sitting there going, I don't know if I'm trans, people are telling me I'm trans. If you are a parent, and this is, I say this with a bit of caution, you have to look at this book with a sympathetic eye, because it talks about adults, it doesn't talk about kids. But if you are a parent and you have, say, a teenager or a young adult, you know, not a young teenager, but somebody who's like 18 plus, who is questioning if they are transgender or suggesting that they might be transgender, particularly if you're sitting there going, I'm afraid they might have just picked this up on the internet. This book goes into, look how thick this book is. My God, man. This book goes into great detail and very clearly and very gently explains much of the transgender experience. And so if you're not sure, am I trans, am I not trans, that book is going to help kind of clarify a lot of that for you so that you can move forward in your life with a lot more certainty about yourself. Now, just because you don't line up 100% with the stuff in this book, that doesn't mean that you're not trans. It just means that this here accounts for a significant amount of transgender experiences that many transgender people have. And since that's something that a lot of people these days are asking themselves about, and I mean, obviously, because of my last video, I can say safely that many, many transgender people do not know for certain what the hell is going on with them. And I certainly didn't. Many of us don't. That book is going to help clarify a lot. It's going to help you understand a lot. I'm going to be doing a review of that book for the next several videos. I'm going to continue working on the Tactical Guide to Women. I will keep doing that. I'm going to finish that, but I want to start on this book as soon as humanly possible because there are so many people in this world with so many questions and so many fears and so many uncertainties, and it's not fair to us that so many of us have to walk around in our lives feeling so uncomfortable with ourselves. We deserve better. As a final note, this gentleman is an autogynephile. He writes in his dedication of the book, "For my people, even those who don't think they are." He understands. And he writes in a way that is immensely sympathetic to the rest of us who are confused, frightened, and uncertain. I am so grateful that he wrote this book, and I am so grateful that I found it. And I'm going to start doing those reviews as soon as I can for you guys. So I hope this helps you. And I'm pretty sure that the author of this book does as well.